off and a little bit more. And
John Macgregor. I chair the Politics Prose Climate Action project, which is a community-based advocacy and education group that got started in 2006 at Politics and Prose, and that's why the name has their name in the beginning of it. And basically, when we meet, we tend to meet there. But we've dealt with a lot of the people in this room, worked with them in various incarnations, and I hope we'll continue to be doing that in the future. It seems to me that groups like ours are the natural allies of the SEU, and that means that there can be a really beautiful symbiotic relationship in which the SEU can help those groups reach out to their clientele, can provide information to them and through its own expertise and so on. And no less important, those groups can help be the legs and arms and so on of the SEU in reaching its clientele, which is all of the people of DC. In order to make that happen well, I think it would probably be helpful if there were some sort of forum or some sort of regular systematic way for SEU to meet with those groups. It doesn't have to be every week or every month, but periodically anyway, so that they have this really lively, ongoing relationship of communication and so on. So we know what you need, we can help, and maybe vice versa. Getting ahead of myself a little bit, because that's actually suggestion number one, I thought I would use the rest of my minutes here to talk about some of the little questions, some of the priorities we may have, and a few suggestions that we have about the sort of things that SEU does or might do. The first one, and this kind of reflects my background, is funding. I have, like many of us, been worried every time the DC City Council gets to budget time, because the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund, which is the source of all of SEU's financial resources, though it is nominally an independent, well, it's nominally dedicated just for these purposes, isn't really fully earmarked in that sense, because the City Council can take that money and use it for any other uses when the budget pressures seem to demand that. And that's happened, and it's taken a lot of fight by guys like Rob and Anya and us and others to defend the budget. So we think if this could be turned, this Sustainable Energy Trust Fund could be turned into a truly independent trust fund, off limits, untouchable, it would make planning so much easier, and performance of long-term programs that depend on a sustained funding source possible by SEU. So that's, to me, a pretty high priority.
John, you want to point out the fact that the district is the only one who has a third-party supplier that has some systems benefits charge that actually goes to the government. Every other place, Vermont, Wisconsin, Delaware, even Delaware, have separate trust funds that are overseen and they can't be touched. It's only the districts where it can be touched.
Thank you. This is a good point. It means we're not talking about pie in the sky, something that's really unfeasible and too idealistic to be possible. No, we're the exception and not the others.
Can I also add something? Because the SEU has the ability to raise other funds, which you already are doing, obviously, that could even further jeopardize
Absolutely.
the trust fund seed money.
Yeah, you cannot leverage money if you're not sure you have
much,
it.
or the mayor does.
Second area is the role of the SEU as originally envisaged as a one-stop shop for energy efficiency and renewable energy investments, activities in DC. The startup phase is basically over. March 9 is the end of the low-income multifamily program, for example, and I guess you can tell us what's going to follow that.
Yep.
You know, what's planned for now is a big question. I know that you have 10,000 different ideas that have been put to you for what you ought to be doing next. And, you know, it'd be nice to hear a little bit more about that, how much of it is going to go into, you know, major commercial things, and how much into single family, and how much into the multifamily residences, and in what form. Big question, but anyway. Some ideas on that, actually, on things that seem useful. One of them is, as a one-stop shop, the point of contact that many people will have first is your website. And when one goes to the website, one sees, we're working on this for single-family homeowners, for example. But there's nothing there yet. What if we want to know about contractors? Who's good? Who's sort of approved? What if we want to know about what's, you know, a calculator for my carbon savings or something? What's the best, most economic things I could do in my home or in my apartment building or whatever? Things like that that would be useful to the community. Just building it up. I know, and I fully understand you've been really busy.
No, but I
have
have responses for those points, and they're very good. Our website is a weakness, but I will respond to each one of those points.
Good.
You very valid points.
Okay. Another one is on the, and I just heard in your presentation about the Industrial Bank of Washington, such things as that, leveraging the amount of funds that you're getting through the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund. You know, the idea of a revolving fund that you yourselves could administer, the idea of some sort of PACE property assessed clean energy funding collaboration, which has its own problems with it. But anyway, $15 million doesn't really go very far in the face of the enormous need that we have. So what kind of opportunities are you now exploring beyond the Industrial Bank of Washington one?
Sure.
For leveraging? Another question or area of possible work in the future is the role of the SEU in collaboration with the Mayor's Sustainable DC program. There are hundreds of DC residents out there chipping away through their work on the various working groups with ideas, and some of those ideas actually call on the SEU to do X, Y, or Z, or things which, well, some of them are definitely good ideas, and some of them you may have qualms about. But you're in an ideal position to work with them to help to make this time achievement of those goals of the Sustainable DC thing a reality. We've had some disappointments in the past, and I hope that this time with help from the SEU, that'll be less likely to happen in the future. And the final thing, and this one is a little bit controversial, is the role, or not, of the SEU as a policy advocate. If you have grand goals that you want to achieve, and you're working every day on these things, you definitely come up with ideas about what sort of legislation, what sort of government program, what sort of policies would help you to achieve your goals. And that doesn't mean just help you, it helps the whole people of DC. On the other hand, you know, will you be comfortable, will you be even allowed to advocate for those things? So that's a question. I personally hope that you will, and now that you're continuing to build up, you've got the first year behind you, you're beginning to be able to branch into other things. I hope that that would be one of those things. Second to last thing is on marketing. Very important. Everybody realizes it. You've mentioned it yourself, how important that is. It's politically and an actual service delivery that people know about you and know what you do. And we'd be interested to hear how it is that you plan to market the SEU and its services further. And we'd particularly like to know how we might be able to be involved in helping you to do that, because we're fully on board that it's important to make you guys more successful. Last thing is the relationship with energy utilities that you also referred to. And the buzzword here is data access. You cannot work with the most important users of energy here, or the least efficient users of energy here, unless you know who they are. And if you're not getting cooperation on that from your old friends in PEPCO or our other friends in Washington Gas, you have a problem. And at this point, I'd like to finish off what I had to say and turn this over to our SEU Advisory Board member, Larry Martin, who has been leading the effort from the Advisory Board side on the data access question. So Larry, can I hand it over to you now?
Yeah, although I'm not really leading the effort. The subcommittee was first chaired by Rick Morgan of the Public Services Commission. When he left the commission, it was taken over by Donna Cooper, who's
Oh, I
vice
stand
president
corrected. Okay.
of PEPCO. So they have been chairs of the committee. Early on, the advisory board recognized that if we were going to try and address or target the largest energy users in the district, we're going to have information on that. Even before we wrote the request for proposals, we were trying to find out how to get that information. So we've been pushing this for a while. The Data Access Committee has met twice and resolved that it's really a legal issue. PEPCO and Washington Gas, any utility, is required by law to keep this information confidential. Your information on your energy use is confidential. They can't share it. The SEU couldn't get it if they paid for it. So the solution to this was simply to write a statute to change the law so that this information could be provided by the utilities to a third party. And that law has been drafted. It's drafted by Mary Chay's staff. This is it, actually, and I think you can probably get a copy of it. Contact her staff. But still, there's concerns on the part of the utilities that the law just doesn't meet their concerns, despite the fact that their principal concern is being held liable should this information become known outside the SEU, outside the government. The SEU is a government contractor. It's not as though it's the public, it's a government contractor. So there are confidentiality arrangements between contractors and the government. Despite this, the utility is saying, we're still concerned about it, even though this kind of law has been passed in other places, as you were pointing out earlier, John. Other places have done this kind of stuff. It's not like we're looking for a strange exception. We're not. The law provides for security. There are other concerns, information management costs. But again, if we want the information, it doesn't seem unreasonable, or we might have to pay for it. And so I can't see how that would be a deal breaker. There are folks on the advisory committee who are a little concerned that we're not getting a solution to a problem that's been identified. We can't identify the largest users without having this information. And there are other applications too, such as rate classes, low-income rate classes, commercial rate classes, different various residential rate classes that SU might want to target their programs to. And without this information, we can't get it. So that is an issue. I'm glad that you guys are addressing it and that you're raising it, John.
Larry, can you just for the record, just in like 2 sentences, describe it in a way that the issue in a way that folks that may not know anything about it might could understand it better.
Yeah, I did try to do that.
I know. I'm trying to be a little more succinct.
This is for marketing.
One of the objectives written into the statute of the SEU was to identify the largest user and to ensure that they have the best quality, efficiency, and conservation available to them to bring down their energy use. Well, we can't really identify the largest users without this information. We need to know who's the largest user. The utility won't give us the information. It's secret. It should be. That's the whole intent of the original law, to keep that information, just between the utility and the users. But we're saying, okay, we have a new type of utility. It's a government contract relationship. We think this information should be made available, and we're willing to rewrite the statute to ensure that the information remains secure between the third party, the SEU.
Okay, that's better. That's a little bit better. Thank you. Back to you. John, once you sum up? Or?
No, that was it. I didn't want to take any more time.
And let's let Nina, since she's one.
Well, I'd just like to ask Larry a question, and Ted. Is it possible for the SEU to benchmark and track improvements in energy use without this information over the years?
Not for rate classes. Not for it. And we wouldn't be looking for individual users necessarily, except for the largest ones. We don't want to target people. It's never been the intent of targeting residences or commercial establishments that benchmarked unnecessarily. All this information would be used in aggregate, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
You're correct, absolutely. But, I mean, I think you very accurately point out one of, I think I mentioned that as one of our largest challenges within trying to meet the mandates of the law, where we are trying to identify these largest users. And but there will be a legislative process, and all of you are familiar with that, and it will take some time for the legislation to move through, for the rules to be promulgated, for the Public Service Commission to issue something around that. But we can't stop our work in the interim, so we have to figure out how to continue the work and move around it, and as I said, as best we can, come up with a thought, and we'll talk about this next Monday at the advisory board meeting. We'd love other thoughts on it if you guys have some ideas.
I will just add that there are opponents to this legislation.
On the advisory.
Larry, can I just
Oh,
point out-
you know what, could I don't want to get too distracted. Can we hold on to that for a second? 'Cause I know there's going to be a few other issues. And I wanted to give Dan Maureen a chance to make some present.
I'm like ready to hop in on this.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Then why don't you just give us a quick overview?
yeah, I'll just give a quick and dirty. I'm gonna try
Please
to pin it.
notate the issues that you still want to have more conversations about. And go.
I guess I'm the business guy here, so I'm gonna try to